This is Steve Wright for Imagineer Systems with a tutorial about the Mocha workflow. So let's start our look at the Mocha workflow by taking a quick overview of the entire process. We'll use as an example this little airplane clip. What we'll do is a stereo conversion type roto problem. What we'll need is a roto on this fuselage so that it can be depth graded. The procedure is going to be I'll do a planar track on the fuselage, then I'll take that tracking data and apply it to a rotospline, and then refine the rotospline's edges. So the first step in any tracking is to, of course, inspect the shot to see if there's a place that's best to start. This is fine, we'll just start at the beginning. Then we're going to draw a very loose tracking spline around the target, because the planar tracker wants to see some outside edge, so we leave it a little bit loose. All right. And of course we want to name this, so we're going to call this fuselage track. All right, because we want to make sure we name all of our splines so we know exactly what everyone is doing. Okay, we're ready to track. So we'll click on Track Forward. And even though the fuselage is not a planar surface, the planar tracker still tracks very well and collects useful information that we're going to use for our rotospline. So we'll play that and go, yes, we have a track. We'll put that back to the beginning. And now we can turn off the fuselage track roto and draw our real roto. So I'm going to use the B-spline here. Draw a nice roto around the airplane. We'll zoom in a little bit. We'll fine-tune our spline. Now this particular element has a lot of depth of field, so I'm going to draw my splines on the inside where the hard edge is, and then I'm going to pull out a nice feathered edge for the actual roto. All right, so I'm not going to worry about this little hump here. We'll catch that with a separate process. All right, so I got my basic roto, and now I'm going to pull out my feathered edge to allow for the depth of field. There we go. And I can show you what that mat's going to look like. There. So you can see all the soft edge for the depth of field. Okay, turn that back on. Get our overlays back. And of course, before I go any further, I want to rename the spline so I know exactly what it's being used for. So I'll come over here. And I'll rename this fuselage roto. All right. Now we're ready to attach the roto spline to the tracking spline. I'll do that down here, link to track. So I'm going to link the fuselage roto spline to the fuselage track spline. Now the fuselage roto will track with the airplane over the length of the shot. Of course, since my tracking spline is off a little bit, my roto is, so we're going to have to go in and touch it up. So we'll go to the last frame in the clip. I'll move down here, and I'll select the tool that will grab the right points for me and adjust the spline a little bit here, a little bit there, here, and we'll fix up the tail. Needs to be a little wider from this angle. All right, let's say we like that for the last frame. And then I'm going to come down to the middle frame, touch up my spline control points a little bit. All right there. Then I'll go halfway from the beginning of the shot to my middle control point. Do another little touch-up. Of course, you can use any keyframing strategy you wish. In this particular case, I am using bifurcation, going halfway each time. Halfway between the middle and the end keyframe. See if we need a little refinement here. That looks good. Maybe pull this down a little bit. There we go. Okay. And now I'll rehome the viewer. And now I can turn on the red mat and turn off the overlays, and we can see how well we're tracking to the airplane. All right, well, there you go. That's a quick overview of the entire tracking and rotospline process. Now let's back up and take another look at the Mocha workflow in much more detail. To start a brand new project, click the New Project icon, and you'll get the New Project dialog box. The first thing you want to do is choose the location of your clip, so click Choose. When the browser opens, you can load the project media for this video by clicking on the Media folder, then select the Airplane folder, and then click on any one of the airplane frames, and then click Open. The first line up here is the full path name to where you loaded the clip. If your media ever gets moved somewhere, you can click Choose to get a new browser and browse to the new location. The name Airplane comes from the prefix of the frames that you loaded. And if you want to change that, you can. The location field here is the default location where Mocha is going to write the project. It's going to put it in the same folder as your media in a new folder called Results. If you want to send it somewhere else, you click Change and browse to the new location where you'd like to keep your Mocha project. Next, let's take a look at the two tabs, Option and Advanced. Options first. Mocha looks at the length of the clip and, of course, fills in the frame range, in this case 1 to 28. Next is the frame rate. If you load a clip of sequential frames like this one, Mocha assumes you're working on a film job and puts in a frame rate of 24 for you. If the frame rate is different, like 25 or 30, you select that here. If you load a QuickTime movie, Mocha will look at the movie and decide what the frame rate is. But you always check this to make sure it's set up correctly. I'm going to put my frame rate back to 24 because this is a film job. There are a number of predefined pixel aspect ratios that you can select from here. Since this clip doesn't conform to any of the predefined standards, I'm entering a custom aspect ratio of 1.0. Down here, Fields and Pull Down is if you're working with interlaced video. Now let's take a look at the Advanced tab. The first field here is the frame offset. You can select timecode in case you're working with video clip, or frame numbers if you're working with sequential frames. Only turn caching on if you have large frames on a remote server and a slow network, because caching will then copy them all to your local drive for faster access, but this is not worthwhile if you've got a fast network. The color parameter is designed to convert the incoming image to a color space that looks good on your monitor. You would leave it linear if the incoming image is an sRGB Rec 709 or an EXR linear file. However, if it was a Cineon log image, it could be a Cineon or a DPX file, you select this option, it wakes up these other parameters here for converting the log to linear. Don't mess with these unless you understand actually how they work. The third option is Panalog, and it has no parameters to set. Panalog is a logarithmic data format for the Panavision Genesis camera. I'll put the color space back to linear because my JPEG images are in sRGB color space. The conversion here has to do with bit depth. So none means don't change the bit depth of the incoming image, or you could say I want it to be converted to float, or I want it to be converted to 8-bit. For example, if you were loading 16-bit images or EXR floating point, you could convert them to 8-bit for a faster system response. Mine are already 8-bit, so I'll leave it to none. Once you have all the settings correct in the new project window, click OK, and your job will start. And now we're ready to begin our work. In the next tutorial, we'll take a closer look at the Mocha interface.